Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. Currently, Long Houchen did not find the fourth rank of the ninth step internal spiritual energy terrifying. He found the fourth rank of the ninth step external spiritual energy to be terrifying. Arbao's terrifying speed earlier did not come from his internal spiritual energy, but from his physical abilities. Are you afraid? Arbao said coldly. Long Houchen smiled. Why don't you try it and you'll know. As he said that, his body suddenly became rather illusory. Arbao shifted his body instinctively. The purplish-red rings of light under his feet suddenly lit up, turning his natural dragon armor the same color. He extended his purple sword and two of him actually appeared to his side. They seemed exactly the same as him. Clones. They seemed rather similar to Zhong Fangfang's spiritual stove of second life. The three Arbaos flashed at the same time, but they launched attacks from different directions at Long Houchen. They worked together and formed a triangle, directly charging towards Long Houchen. The three purplish swords were lifted high over their heads at the same time, but only the central sword had a gradient in color. Clearly, Arbao did not plan on hiding his body from Long Houchen. Ding! With the sword of eternity raised, it blocked the three huge purplish swords and only produced a sound. The dense aura of life suddenly emerged from Long Houchen's body. Afterwards, his sword of eternity turned green and erupted with green light, which swept towards the three Arbaos. In that moment, Arbao felt like he had been sucked into a huge, green waterfall. The unstoppable feeling immediately shocked him. Just like how Long Houchen had underestimated him, he had underestimated Long Houchen as well. Nature's bloom. Out of the three balls of light that revolved around Long Houchen, the green ball of light had already fused into the sword of eternity. Deep, green light remained in the air for 5 whole seconds before gradually fading away. Arbao appeared 300 meters away from Long Houchen. He seemed to be in quite a mess. His two clones had already vanished, while his natural dragon armor was crisscrossed with wounds. There were at least 20 or so burns. You're not my opponent. Long Houchen raised his head slightly and looked down on his opponent. Arbao snorted coldly. That's too early for you to say. Do you think you can harm me with attacks like that? As he said that, the rings of purplish-red light lit up below his feet once more. When his natural dragon armor turned purplish-red, the marks on his armor completely vanished. What a strange domain, Long Houchen smiled. He did not seem to be in a hurry at all. He did not take the initiative to launch an attack. This time, the purplish-red light did not fade away. Arbao's eyes gradually turned into the same color, while his dragon wings slowly unfurled on his back. The sky behind him actually became the same purplish-red hue. Afterwards, a great pressure expanded from the purplish-red color, rushing towards Long Houchen. He was actually pushed 1,000 meters away by this pressure. The divine throne of eternity and creation released a layer of white light that was an inch thick automatically, protecting Long Houchen from the pressure. Nearby, 100 meters behind Huang Shuo, a pitch-black figure flashed. She had actually been forced out of the space there by the pressure. Although she immediately fled into the distance and hid herself again, it was more than enough to demonstrate how terrifying the pressure was. A supra-divine tool. Long Houchen exclaimed. Arbao really did bring him a surprise again. The purplish-red light in Arbao's eyes burned like flames. Right behind him in the pitch-black space, a purplish-red pillar lit up. The thick pillar of light was actually 500 meters wide. The moment it had appeared, the bright sky immediately darkened. The sun seemed to have been struck into oblivion as the pillar of light rose. The huge pillar of light, that was completely pearlish red, was inscribed with countless strange symbols. Most importantly, a huge dragon that was exactly the same color lay on the pillar. The terrifying pressure even caused the air to collapse and the sky to distort. The shock from the huge pillar's appearance was just too great. That's the Demon God Emperor's Demon God Pillar. Long Houchen was surprised. Did Arbao inherit the postillion of Demon God Emperor already? No, that couldn't be right. The Demon God Emperor's Demon God pillar was completely dark golden, and it was much larger than this purplish-red pillar. However, the purplish-red pillar clearly gave off the exact same aura as the Demon God Emperor's pillar. Never did you expect this, Long Houchen. Arbao looked at his opponent in the distance coldly as the purplish-red pillar gave him unprecedented confidence. I am the successor of the Demon God Emperor, the future Demon God Emperor of the 7th generation. Father's granted me a portion of the power from his Devil Dragon pillar. Even though what I use is only a mirror image of the Devil Dragon pillar, I can borrow a third of its power. That's more than enough to deal with you. He held the huge sword in his right hand as he extended a finger on his left hand. Immediately, purplish-red light descended from the sky from the Devil Dragon pillar, immediately landing on Arbao. The huge, purplish-red dragon on the Devil Dragon pillar seemed to become alive. It growled and snarled as it rushed towards Arbao. The dense, purplish-red color caused the surrounding air to shatter and explode. Arbao immediately gained a set of purplish-red armor on top of his natural dragon armor. The entire set of purplish-red armor seemed to be related to dragons. The helmet was a dragon with its mouth open, while the entire armor was covered with thick scales. There were 2 huge dragon claws on the shoulders. Purplish-red light flowed about, such that the armor seemed alive. Even his purplish huge sword became covered in a layer of purplish-red scales. Long Houchen did not attack Arbao as he transformed. He only watched quietly. This was only a third of the Devil Dragon pillar's powers. If the Demon God Emperor was here instead, the power would be even more terrifying. The abilities that Arbao currently demonstrated was perfect for Long Houchen to personally experience the might of the Devil Dragon pillar. After being surrounded in purplish-red light, Arbao's presence changed. His terrifying aura directly skyrocketed as purplish-red sparks flickered in his surroundings. It became a dense net of electricity. The fusion of darkness and lightning was the true powers of the Imperial clan of the Devil Dragons. As Long Houchen watched on, he pointed his sword of eternity at Arbao. Immediately, a streak of white light tore through the darkness from the Devil Dragon pillar and landed on Arbao heavily. The light of judgment. Arbao stared at Long Houchen coldly, but he did not try to block the attack. With a great boom, white light was sent flying, but he raised his purple dragon sword of startling heaven at Long Houchen like nothing had happened at all. Milky white light shone from Long Houchen's body in that moment. It was the domain of eternity. Arbao's expression changed slightly as the white light had almost illuminated the world behind Long Houchen. The white light purged the darkness from the purplish-red color on a large scale, matching the terrifying aura from the Devil Dragon pillar. It was also in that next moment that Long Houchen and Arbao basically lunged forth at the same time. The 2 figures clashed at the boundary of their domains with lightning speed. Boom! In the moment the Sword of Eternity had collided with the purple dragon's sword of startling heaven, the world seemed to be falling apart. The entire world immediately became dyed black and white. Huang Shuo immediately retreated into the distance. Even though the powerful assassin could appear near him at any time, he could not care anymore. Having used the power of the Devil Dragon pillar, Arbao's strength had completely exceeded his. Coupled with the power unleashed from the divine throne of eternity and creation by Long Houchen, the explosion was just too terrifying. Neither Long Houchen nor Arbao were knocked away by that terrifying power. The purplish huge sword seemed to have become stuck to the white huge sword, while Long Houchen and Arbao remained locked together at such a close distance. The powers of darkness and light struggled against one another evenly. The domain of eternity also engaged in a full-blown clash against Arbao's Devil God domain. This was purely a clash of power. Under the complete fusion of their equipment, external spiritual energy and internal spiritual energy, they did their best to overcome the pressure from their opponent. Arbao's external spiritual energy completely surpassed Long Houchen's, but in that moment, he was the one with the warped expression. Long Houchen gripped the Sword of Eternity with both hands as he hovered there without moving. He allowed Arbao to push him as hard as possible, but Long Houchen did not press back. He only stared at Arbao with glowing eyes, allowing their domains to clash. Huang Shuo guarded himself against the assassin that could appear at any time, as he watched Long Haochen and Arbao's battle. He could tell that although Arbao had invoked a part of the Devil Dragon Pillar's power, but his overall cultivation was still one step below Long Haochen's. However, for some reason, Long Haochen did not seem to be using his full power. The intense clash made Huang Shuo forget about the most important matter, which was the situation of his other Imperial Guards. However, he could not be blamed. After the Domain of Eternity and Devil God Domain had clashed, all of the spiritual energy in a range of several dozen kilometers was heavily disturbed. Even if he wanted to contact his clansmen, he would struggle, let alone the fact that an extremely powerful assassin currently lurked around him. As Long Haoche and Arbao began their battle, the Imperial Black Dragon Guard that was responsible for pursuing the bright glimmer of hope was completely mobilized as well. Out of them, the Imperial Guards that pursued Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi had it the easiest. Yang Wenjiao rode a starlight unicorn, which fled into the distance with its wings unfurled. It traveled as quickly as it could. However, the starlight unicorn was still quite a lot slower than the devil dragons. Their distance grew closer and closer. The devil dragons were the greatest clan out of the demons. Every single member was powerful, and coupled with the demon god emperor's control over the entire demon race, they were all haughty people. After pursuing for a while, the two Imperial Guards discovered that Yang Wenjiao's cultivation was much weaker than they had thought it to be, because the starlight unicorn he rode was barely at the 8th step at most. The strength of mounts would usually increase with the night, unless they had chosen a low-level mount in the first place. While it was very unlikely for starlight unicorns to reach the 9th step, powerful starlight unicorns would reach the peak of the 8th step once they reached adulthood, while Yang Wenjiao's mount only appeared to have just reached the 8th step no matter what. This meant that it was virtually impossible for Yang Wenjiao's cultivation to have reached the 9th step. Not only were the Imperial Black Dragon Guard all 9th step powerhouses, their external spiritual energy had exceeded 100,000 as well. As the two Imperial Guards grew closer, they experienced more and more disdain. Was such a weak human worthy enough for them to take action together? Yang Wenjiao glanced back at them. As he saw they get closer and closer to him, about to enter the range of attack, he seemed to become rather flustered. He urged the starlight unicorn to quickly descend. A forest just happened to be below. You want to flee using the forest? The two Imperial Guards could not help but sneer viciously. One of the Imperial Guards raised his right hand and a ball of pitch-black light landed in the forest first. The ball of light erupted around 100 meters away from the forest and a black mist enveloped below. Immediately, large swathes of trees began to wither and corrode. It turned into a black mess which vanished. As if alarmed, the starlight unicorn's flight became rather unstable and suddenly fell downwards. The two Imperial Guards were confident that was what happened. They also sped up together, so they could quickly kill this human and report back. The falling starlight unicorn suddenly flapped both of its wings, when it was only 50 meters away from the ground. At the same time, Yang Wenjiao shone with golden light, and channeled his spiritual energy into the starlight unicorn, to help it stabilize their movement and regain their balance. However, their speed was drastically affected with that. The two Imperial Guards quickly approached them. They did not even try to use their weapons. The left Imperial Guards waved his right hand and reached towards Yang Wenjiao. Immediately, a huge, black dragon claw appeared in the air, almost 10 meters wide, directly extending towards Yang Wenjiao and his starlight unicorn. Yang Wenjiao suddenly turned around. A heavy sword that shone with orange light appeared in his hands. Golden light was emitted like a mist, making him shine like a huge sun on the back of the starlight unicorn. The sacred sun's brilliance. This was a legacial technique that originated from the divine knight of defense and planning Yang Hao Han. The sacred sun's brilliance was extremely bright, which made the two Imperial Guards feel like they were being scorched alive, and also blinded them temporarily. The two Imperial Guards had basically attacked Yang Wenjiao at the same time. However, the starlight unicorn under Yang Wenjiao suddenly retracted its wings, and began to freefall once again, causing the two attacks to miss. At the same time, 6 different colored specks of light silently emerged from 6 different directions from the forest below. The 6 streaks of light immediately merged into a huge magic array, enveloping the 2 blinded Imperial Guards. The Imperial Black Dragon Guard really were the greatest force under the Demon God Emperor's control. Having missed their attacks, they immediately sensed something was wrong. They held hands and emitted an angry roar at the same time. With a great dragon's roar, 2 huge black dragons immediately coiled around them, protecting them. Before their vision had recovered, they had gone as far as to use their most powerful defensive technique, and they had used it together. As a result, it was imaginable just how powerful the defense was. Unfortunately, they were unclear about the opponent they faced. 6 figures immediately arrived from 6 different directions. The blue represented water, the red represented fire, the azure represented wind, the yellow represented earth, the black represented darkness, and the gold represented light. The 6 elements gathered. They were 6 powerful warriors with souls of powerhouses burning in their eyes. This powerful technique, that originated from the ancient times, erupted in the next moment. The 6 different lights immediately merged together, immediately erupting brightly through the 6-colored hexagram they had formed. The 6 great powerhouses passed by just like the lines that formed the hexagram. The creator of this array was the holy necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux. It was called the poison feather of elements. In the moment the array had been activated, the 6 powerhouses vanished, while the 6 lines immediately joined together. When the final corner was formed, the outline of a 6-sided star immediately surged into the air as a huge pillar of light, completely swallowing the 2 Imperial Guards. It was already too late for the Imperial Guards to react now. The protective black dragons were immediately dyed with 6 colors, before followed by their tough, but still vulnerable bodies. Yang Wenjiao saw the 6-colored, 6-sided star rise into the body after stabilizing himself, and his heart began to palpitate. What a terrifying power! At the same time, he clenched his right hand firmly. Success! He and Duan Yi had both been attempting to overcome the bottleneck to the 9th step recently. Borrowing the army to fight in several large-scale battles, they could sense their breakthroughs were immediate. As he looked at the poison feather of elements in the sky, Yang Wenjiao felt like he had grasped the most important aspect of his breakthrough. Duan Yi had basically experienced the same thing as Yang Wenjiao, except he did not have a starlight unicorn as a mount, which is why he fled more lowly. As a result, the only difference was that he had to use a shield to block an attack from an Imperial Guard. The attack made him spew with blood, but it did make him fall faster. 6 magicians met the 2 Imperial Guards. The mage version of the poison feather of elements were even more terrifying than the warrior version, because while it was weaker in strength, it could be launched from far away. Also at the 9th step, the holy guards from the Tower of Eternity were not the Imperial Black Dragon Guard's opponent in terms of physical toughness and weaponry. However, they completely possessed the upper hand in terms of battle experience, teamwork and elemental combination. Even if they fought against an Imperial Guard individually, it would be rather difficult for the Imperial Guard to kill them, let alone now when the 6 of them were ambushing just 2 Imperial Guards. Come. Chase me. Oh, I'm so scared. Lin Xin teased the 2 Imperial Guards behind him as he flew. He was a mage. Although his flight speed was extraordinary, he still paled in comparison to the devil dragons who knew how to fly naturally. However, the 2 Imperial Guards were unable to catch up to him. This was because a scorching, blue sun and condensed over Lin Xin's head and fireballs constantly flew out. They did not seem powerful, but they could reach very far away, at least further than the devil dragon's attack range. Their explosions were powerful and also gave off an extraordinary heat, such that the 2 Imperial Guards were absolutely pissed off by his provocation, but unable to close their distance. A disparity of strength existed within the Imperial Black Dragon Guard. Perhaps Lin Xin was unlucky, but out of the 2 Imperial Guards that chased him, one was at the 2nd rank of the 9th step, while the other was a domain-wielding powerhouse at the 3rd rank of the 9th step. After these series of provocations, the 2 Imperial Guards were furious. The stronger Imperial Guard let out a roar at the sky and with a shudder, he transformed into his natural form. A huge, black dragon over 30 meters long appeared in the air. Purplish-red light shone in his eyes. His companion immediately mounted the devil dragon, and with a flap of its wings, the devil dragon charged at Lin Xin at full speed. Pitch-black light expanded from his body the moment he began his charge, forming a huge, dragon form of 100 meters long. This was the iconic domain of the devil dragons, the devil dragon domain. Over 70% of the devil dragons would comprehend this domain. With the devil dragon domain paving a path, Lin Xin's bursting fireballs were completely nullified. They were unable to advance any further after blowing up on the domain. Watching the enemy get closer, Lin Xin's smile grew deeper. Oh, I'm so scared. Something's off. This brother's got drugs. Brother's not scared of *T. Two figures silently appeared behind Lin Xin, and at the same time, Lin Xin tossed a pill into his mouth. Afterwards, the two imperial dragons witnessed the most shocking scene in their lives. The blue sun over Lin Xin's head immediately swelled. In just a few seconds, it actually became 100 meters across. The scorching heat seemed to liquefy the air through its distortion. Even the two devil dragons were unable to see Lin Xin anymore. They had no idea what he was doing, but in the next moment, a huge dragon's head emerged from the huge, blue sun. The dragon's head was obviously blue. Just the head was actually as long as the devil dragon, after using his domain. If the dragon's head was 100 meters long, just how thick was it? It basically occupied the entire sun. It looked at the devil dragons with its scorching gaze as they approached it. Blue flames roared wildly, as if the dragon had become infuriated by the devil dragon's challenge. The two imperial guards sensed something was off, while the one who had transformed into a devil dragon turned around in an attempt to flee. However, a powerful suction ended all hopes of escape. The huge, blue dragon opened its mouth and sucked in, like a whale swallowing water. Countless tiny specks of white light immediately appeared in a range of 5 kilometers. They all came from the fire element in the surroundings, forming a strange sight. These tiny specks of light flowed towards the huge, blue dragon's head as it inhaled. They could not flee, but the devil dragons were still powerful. Seeing how the situation was against them, the other imperial guard also let out a furious roar, and turned into a huge dragon. It flapped its wings desperately, with its companion in attempt to break free from the blue dragon's head's control. They did not even consider fighting back right now, because the aura from the blue dragon's head had reached the 6th rank of the 9th step at the very least. It had completely exceeded what they could handle. Under their combined efforts, the two devil dragons seemed to escape from the suction force slowly. However, as they were trying to flee, they had their backs to the terrifying dragon's head, which prevented them from seeing it grow brighter. Oh no! The two imperial guards roared out at the same time. They could not see behind themselves, but they could sense the change in temperature. Just as they were filled with horror, the terrifying suction force suddenly vanished, while the entire space there seemed to freeze up. Afterwards, a huge, blue fireball almost 100 meters wide appeared behind the two imperial guards. Who said the fireball technique was low-level magic? Looking at its size and how dense it was, the two devil dragons seemed like worms, swallowed up by the ball of fire. The fireball continued onwards, before shooting upwards. After ascending by 1,000 meters, it erupted with light even more brilliant than the sun, dyeing the entire sky blue. The huge dragon's head slowly withdrew, and the domain of the sacred sun vanished as well. Lin Xin and the two figures behind him reappeared in the sky. Sensing this fire element in the air, the two eternal heroes beside Lin Xin could not help to gasp. Even with their insight from several thousand years ago, they had never seen such a terrifying fireball. They had assisted Lin Xin in creating this fireball. Little Lin, your sacred sun curse really is terrifying. The two figures that appeared beside Lin Xin were the wind and water element mags from the Eternal Heroes. The speaker was the wind element mage, who was passing his legacy onto Lin Xin. Lin Xin sniggered. Turns out it's actually so fulfilling to be strong. Thank you for allowing me to try this, seniors. The water element mage chuckled. What I'm more curious about is why that co-joined spiritual boosting pill is even effective on undead mags like us. Lin Xin said proudly, "They all call me Has Drugs Bro. In terms of strength, I can't be compared to Boss and the others, but in terms of pill refining, I am the best. As long as there is spiritual energy, by co-joined spiritual boosting pill will be able to unleash its effects." The two eternal heroes were both powerhouses of the 5th rank of the 9th step. Under their combined amplification, Lin Xin was unable to withstand all of their power, but he forcefully increased his cultivation to a terrifying level of the 7th rank of the 9th step. Naturally, the domain of the Sacred Sun and the Sacred Sun curse were drastically strengthened as well, which was why there had been such a terrifying sight earlier. 18 eternal heroes, 12 holy guards, coupled with the 9 from the bright glimmer of hope and the fairy queen of light Yating. Long Houchen's forces were at least twice as powerful as Arbao's. Under these circumstances, would Arbao and his vanguard have any chance against them? The reason why the bright glimmer of hope had shown up on the battlefield was to appear weak, so they could thin the opponents and defeat them individually. If it was an open battle, their opponents could flee if they discovered they were not strong enough. With the strength of the Imperial Black Dragon Guard, half of them could easily escape under those circumstances. However, Long Houchen's objective was to annihilate them all. With every Imperial Guard dead, that was equivalent to chipping away 1/100th of the Devil Dragon clan's strength. Why would Long Houchen miss such a great opportunity? Obviously it was not just the 3 groups that had taken action. Every single member of the Bright Glimmer of Hope, who had been pursued by Imperial Guards fought, and the battles all ended in an overwhelming victory. The failure of the vanguard could not completely be blamed on Arbao or Huang Shuo. How were they supposed to imagine that Long Houchen actually controlled such a great force? According to the estimations of the demons, the humans did not have more than 209th step powerhouses, and they needed to defend all 6 temples. The primary force in Long Houchen's sudden attack this time was his bright glimmer of hope. At most he would have a few 9th step powerhouses from the Night Temple. However, the Night Temple still needed to guard itself and they needed people in command when the army retreated, which was why Huang Shuo believed that even if Long Houchen had set up an ambush, it would not be too great of a threat to the Imperial Black Dragon Guard. At least, they would be able to retreat safely. It had been 6,000 years since the Imperial Black Dragon Guard had been founded and they were basically unstoppable on the Xingmodalu, such that Huang Shuo became slightly careless. How was it possible for him to know that Long Houchen had basically brought the strongest force the humans had to offer this time? Even if it was just the bright glimmer of hope, Huang Shuo and his Imperial Guards may not have been able to defeat them. With 12 holy guards and the entire bright glimmer of hope, they were evenly matched in terms of numbers. If they fought and Long Houchen used his full strength, they will definitely be able to defeat this vanguard army. Not to mention, the most terrifying part of Long Houchen's for this time was actually the Eternal Heroes, who had slumbered for thousands of years. Out of the 18 Eternal Heroes, 2 of them were at the 7th rank of the 9th step, while the rest were at the 5th rank or higher. Every single one of they were capable of self-incarnating domains. A force like this could turn the tides of any battle. During the previous Holy War, the Demon God Emperor had anticipated that the humans were hiding a powerful force, but had never mobilized it. The force was so powerful that it even made the Demon God Emperor afraid. That was how terrifying the Eternal Heroes were. Whether it was Xiao Hua or Xu Yongxiao, they were both powerful with age, but wise at the same time. During the battles before, they spent most of their time hiding behind the bright glimmer of hope, such that even if they could report back to the Demon God Emperor, the demons would struggle to learn that such a powerful force was hidden on the battlefield. Now, the true battle had arrived. It was also the first time in the Devil Dragon clan's history that they had suffered such horrible losses. The Eternal Heroes could use the might of their cultivation to easily defeat the Imperial Black Dragon Guard in individual battles, so let alone now when they remained hidden, ready to launch any sneak attacks. Coupled with the bright glimmer of hope, how could they fail when they possessed an absolute advantage? Arbao and Long Houchen were locked in combat as their heavy swords continued to collie with one another. Long Houchen looked at Arbao coldly. He was in no hurry at all. The more power Arbao erupted with, the power he would use to fend off Arbao would increase accordingly. As the devil god domain and domain of eternity clashed, they constantly distorted the light they produced, such that even Huang Shuo was unable to tell what was going on from a distance. Bao gritted his teeth firmly. His body even began to give off vigor. Long Haochen was actually so powerful. He had already used his full strength. Watch that the purple dragon's sword of startling heaven in his hands constantly released terrifying, black bolts of lightning, ravaging Long Haochen's defenses, after being amplified by the devil dragon pillar. However, Long Haochen was unaffected. No matter how Bao strengthened his attacks, he was unable to defeat his opponent. Just what did Long Haochen's cultivation reach? Is it due to the strengthening from the divine throne of eternity and creation? I can't lose no matter what. Bao's obsession made him brutal. He suddenly bit down on the tip of his tongue, and a mouthful of purplish blood sprayed onto the purple dragon's sword of startling heaven. Immediately, the sword shone brightly with purplish red light, while Long Haochen's pressure increased, watching the sword slowly press towards him. The devil god pillar behind Bao showed signs of condensing, while the huge devil dragon pillar seemed like it was about to collapse, forcing back the domain of eternity gradually. I have to win, regardless of the consequences. That was Bao's only thought. An advantage. I've finally gained an advantage. Sensing the sword of eternity being pressed back slowly, Bao rejoiced. He glanced at Long Haochen instinctively. What he hoped to see the most was Long Haochen panicking and despairing. However, he was disappointed. All he saw was a pair of calm, golden eyes. They were terrifyingly calm, as if nothing in the world could disturb their calmness. It's about time. Bao's heart immediately tightened when Long Haochen uttered something strange. It was also at this moment that he heard a strange sound. Thump, thump. Bao suddenly heard a thunderous heartbeat. Before he could understand why, a completely overpowering strength appeared from Long Haochen's sword of eternity. Afterwards, he was sent flying. He only stopped when he collided into the devil dragon pillar. Long Haochen remained where he was before, while the clash between the domain of eternity and devil god domain returned to how it was before, at a balance. However, Bao's heart had completely sunken. He refused to admit this no matter what, but he understood he was not Long Haochen's opponent. He had unleashed his full strength using a method that would harm himself, yet he was still blown away by Long Haochen. He did not suffer any heavy physical injuries, but the mental impact was unrivaled. Looking at the calm Long Haochen, Bao experienced a multitude of emotions. He roared out suddenly and lifted the purple dragon's sword of startling heaven over his head, letting out another mouthful of purplish red blood. Your Highness, you must not. In the distance, Huang Shuo saw what had happened there when Bao was blown away by Long Haochen. His expression changed. Just when he wanted to rush over and stop Bao, so he could fight Long Haochen with Bao, the blackness that had vanished for quite a while appeared once again. This time, a golden figure appeared with it, one behind the other. Part 1 end here.